Hello friends, welcome back to Jurist Lens. Today we are subject to discuss the meaning of legal methods. Friends, the term legal method contains two words, legal and method. The word legal is something related with the law. The dictionary meaning of legal is connected with the law. Dear friends, the word legal is also described as conforming to rules of law. Now let's understand the meaning of connected with the law. Friends, the term connected with the law describes something as being part of or related to the system of law. Now let's consider some of the statements. Number 1, before signing the contract, you should get legal advice from a lawyer. Here, the advice is about the law, it is related to the law, and hence it is called as connected with the law. Number 2, she is studying the Indian legal system. Here, the subject matter of her study is the system of Indian laws and codes. Therefore, it is related with the law or being part of the law, and hence it is called as a connected with the law. Dear friends, here the advice and the system that we talk about is not just a general idea, but one that is recognized, defined or regulated by the legal system. It is the key term that brings all these areas under one single umbrella of law. Now let's understand the meaning of conforming to the rules of law. Friends, the term conforming to rules of law describes an action as being allowed, permitted or recognized by the law, and this is opposite of illegal. Friends, let's consider some of the statements to understand the meaning of conforming to rules of law. Number 1, parking your car in a no parking zone is not legal. Dear friends, here an action of parking the car in a no parking zone is illegal because this action is not permitted or recognized by the law, hence it is not conforming to rules of law. Number 2, in India, the legal age for voting is 18. Friends, a 17-year-old child is not permitted to vote. The legal age for voting is 18 and it is recognized by the law. Hence, here the action is legal. It is called as conforming to rules of law. Number 3, after she paid the final installment, she became the legal owner of the house. Here, her ownership is recognized and enforced by the law because she paid all the requisite fee. Dear friends, here the word legal functions as a stamp of approval. It confirms that an action is in full compliance with the rules and is therefore permitted and enforceable. This meaning establishes the clear distinction between what is allowed and what is forbidden. Now let's understand the meaning of method. Dear friends, method means an appropriate way to carry out a study, which means that a correct process or suitable process to carry out a particular subject. Dear friends, method means a planned and organized way of doing something. Friends, method is a systematic procedure, technique or a mode of inquiry proper to a particular discipline. For example, in science, we use a scientific method to hypothesize, experiment and observe. But in law, we use a legal method to analyze the cases, interpreting statutes and applying precedents. Now let's consider how we use legal methods to analyze cases, interpreting statutes and apply precedents. For example, a law student studying the right to privacy would not just read a textbook definition. They would systematically read and dissect the full text of landmark cases like Kharak Singh vs. State of UP and KS Puttasamy vs. Union of India. Here, their method involves identifying the facts of each case, the legal question, that is to say the issues between the parties, the court's final decision, and most importantly, the court's reasoning, that is to say the ratio decidendi, to understand how the law on privacy was established and evolved. Dear friends, when I say it is a legal method, it commonly refers to a set of techniques used to analyze and apply the law, and to determine the appropriate weight that should be accorded to different sources of law in a given case. Now let's consider how we use a set of techniques and weight must be given to different sources of law. For example, a woman works at a large software company in India. The company's internal HR policy states that a female employees are entitled to 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. The employee who is pregnant believes she is entitled to more. So here the legal question is Is the employee entitled to only the 12 weeks from her company's contract, or does the law say something different? Here, a lawyer must use the legal method to analyze the situation and weigh the different sources of law. Now, the lawyer finds three relevant sources of law, that is to say, number one, the company's HR policy, number two, a national law, that is to say, the Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017, and number three, the Constitution, which is the supreme law of this country. Dear friends, company's HR policy says that employees are entitled to 12 weeks of paid maternity leave. And number two, the national law, that is to say the Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017, particularly section 5 clause 3, states that a woman is entitled to a maximum of 26 weeks of paid maternity leave. And number three, the Constitution, particularly Article 42 of the Constitution, states that the state shall make provision for securing just and humane conditions of work and for maternity relief. Dear friends, here the lawyer has to determine the weight of the sources. This is the most important step of the legal method. The lawyer must decide which source wins in a conflict. Number one, the lowest weight is given to the company's HR policy. Number two, high weight is given to the Maternity Benefit Act. And number three, highest weight is given to the Constitution. This is the supreme law of the land. It provides the guiding principle for the statute. The 26-week statute is seen as the implementation of the constitutional goal. Dear friends, using this method, the lawyer reaches a clear-cut conclusion that the company's HR policy of 12 weeks is illegal because it directly conflicts with the Maternity Benefit Act, which mandates 26 weeks, because a national statute has more weight than a private company policy, and this aligns with the Constitution's goal of providing maternity relief. Dear friends, legal method can be defined as an attempt to explain or analyze the technique of thinking like a lawyer. Now let's understand a technique of thinking like a lawyer. For example, Rahul texts Priya, I will sell you my blue bicycle for 5,000 rupees. Priya texts back, great, I will take it. The next day, Rahul gets a better offer for 7,000 rupees from someone else and tells Priya the deal is off. Here, a person not using the legal method might say, Rahul is a bad friend, he broke his promise and that is wrong. But a person using the legal method, that is to say thinking like a lawyer, immediately sets aside the moral or personal feelings and applies the established rules for contract formation. So the lawyer's technique is to analyze the facts by breaking down into the required legal elements. So how a lawyer thinks here? Is there a legally enforceable contract? A valid contract requires three main elements. Number one, offer, number two, acceptance, and number three, consideration. Here, the offer is made by Rahul and it is accepted by Priya, and the consideration of 5,000 is present in this case. Since all three legal elements are present here, a valid contract was formed the moment Priya sent her acceptance. So Rahul's later attempt to back out is a breach of contract. The legal method allows the lawyer to conclude confidently that Priya has a legal right to the bicycle or damages and that Rahul's better offer is legally irrelevant. Dear friends, legal method is to study the use and construction of legal rules with a view to gaining insight into how law is planned and organized to attain its objectives in a society. Now let's understand how legal rules are constructed, planned and organized to attain its objectives. For example, the legal rule is drivers must not exceed 40 km per hour in the specific zone, that is to say near a school. The societal objective is to protect human life, specifically vulnerable pedestrians like children who are often in the area. Here, someone learning the legal method would analyze how this rule is constructed to achieve that objective. Number one, why a specific number 40? Why not 20 or 30? Friends, the law is planned to be clear and absolute. It is not to drive reasonably or drive slowly because the objective is too important to leave to individual judgment. Hence, a specific number is 40. Dear friends, since this specific number is 40, it could be enforceable. A police officer can measure it exactly. And since this specific number is 40, the law is certain, which means every driver knows the exact limit and there is no confusion. And number two is, why this specific zone near a school? Why not at temples or theaters? Dear friends, the rule is organized to apply only where the risk is highest. This shows the law is balancing two things, the objective of safety near the school Number two, the objective of efficient transport. Dear friends, by studying this, we learn that the law is not random. It is a planned tool. It uses a clear, strict and non-negotiable rule in a specific area to achieve its high priority objective while not over-restricting freedom in other areas. Friends, according to E. Maloney, the legal method is the study of law and various methods, approaches, processes and procedures that can effectively and beneficially be used to meet the needs of the individual and state. Now let's understand how the needs of individual and the needs of state is balanced by using legal method. For example, the public nuisance law. This is a legal method that specifically balances the needs of individual and the state. Then what is the need of individual here? A factory owner has a right to use their private property to run their business and make a living. And what is the need of the state here? The state has a need to protect its citizen from harm, excessive noise and pollution. But the factory owner decides to run his machine 24 hours a day, creating a loud, non-stop noise. Dear friends, the community members cannot just enter the factory and shut it down. They must use a legal process. They report the issue to the government. Here, the state doesn't immediately shut down the factory. It uses a method called public nuisance law. This law is designed to find a solution that benefits both the individual and the state. Now, a court or government agency will investigate the case. The government will not tell the factory it must close forever, and it will not tell the community they must just suffer. The final solution is the method leads to a compromise. A judge issues an order that is beneficial solution. The factory can operate from 8 am to 6 pm but must remain quiet at night. Dear friends, in this example, the legal method was used to effectively meet the individual's need and the state's need. Dear friends, legal method is the understanding and the use of professional procedure and techniques in interpreting case law, statutes, etc. Dear friends, here is a simple example using a famous professional technique for interpreting statutes known as the mischief rule. For example, a town council passes a law that states no vehicles are permitted in the public park. Here the mischief or the problem is the council passed this law because cars and motor vehicles were driving onto the grass, making loud noises and endangering children. That was the specific problem they wanted to fix. Here, a police officer sees a 10-year-old child riding a small bicycle on a pathway in the park. The officer gives the child's parent a fine, citing the no vehicles law. The parent challenges the fine here. A judge must now interpret the statute that does vehicle include a child's bicycle. Dear friends, a person not using the legal method might just use a dictionary meaning a bicycle is a vehicle, therefore the fine is correct. But a judge or a lawyer using the mischief rule, that is to say, a professional technique, will do the following. Number one, what was the law's purpose? They look at the history of the law and determine it was passed to stop the mischief of dangerous, noisy and destructive motor vehicles. Number two, analyze the facts. They look at the child's bicycle. It is not loud, it is not fast and it doesn't tear up the grass. Number 3, interpretation. The judge concludes that the child's bicycle doesn't represent the mischief that the law was intended to prevent. Number 4, the decision. The judge rules that for the purpose of this statute, the word vehicle was only intended to cover things like cars and motor vehicles, not a child's bicycle. Hence, the fine is dismissed. Dear friends, this is a perfect example of the legal method. Instead of just reading the words literally, the judge used a professional technique to interpret the statute in a way that achieves the law's original goal. Dear friends, now we can say that legal method is the understanding and use of professional procedure and techniques in interpreting case law, statutes, etc. For example, the literal rule. This is a classic professional technique for interpreting a statute. For example, a statute says no dogs allowed in the park. Here, a person walks into the park with a cat. Dear friends, applying the legal method here, a judge using the literal rule, that is to say the technique, must give the word dogs its plain, ordinary and dictionary meaning. Since a cat is not a dog, the judge technique forces them to conclude that the person has not broken the law. So the legal method used was not about what is fair, but about a specific professional procedure for reading the law.